Hey everybody, this is Chris Thompson and welcome to session number 13 of Brain Software with Dr. Mike Mandel. He's been doing hypnosis for 47 years, prefers to match his wine with music rather than food, and is about to shoot a TV pilot. Welcome back, Mike.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here, broadcasting from beautiful cosmopolitan downtown Toronto, the world epicenter of hypnosis.
That's right. So, TV pilot, what's going on there? Can you talk to us about it yet?
No, I can't. There's a couple of things in the works, but as is always the case, there are non-disclosure agreements, and I can just say there's a lot of hypnosis involved.
Well, sounds good. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it, and I'm sure all of our listeners are as well. So let's jump right in. We have a lot to talk about today, and we just finished, or you just finished, I should say. I was only there for 1 out of 4 days of your most recent hypnosis training, and it was awesome. The day that I was there on the Saturday of the second weekend blew my mind.
Yeah, we had some pretty cool stuff going on there, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. And obviously now the format's going to be changing, so for those of you out there who are interested in coming into Toronto for the next training, we're targeting the week, Monday through Friday, rather than dual weekends, which has always been the case. We're going to do a Monday through Friday, 5 days. September 24th through 28th is the tentative date that we have. We have an even better room, a bigger room, and it's going to be awesome. You're redesigning the course, I hear.
Yes, book your vacation for September 24 to 28. Come to Toronto on the weekend of the just prior to the 24th, which would be the 22nd or 21st, depending how you work it. Stay in downtown Toronto and come and study with me at St. Michael's College, University of Toronto for 5 deep down, trancey, intensive days. Find out what hypnosis is all about. I don't care if you've been doing hypnosis for 30 years. My mandate is I can get you to the next level. I put so many hypnosis trainers through my basic course, you wouldn't believe it. It's not a testimony of my skill set. It's just I've lived and eaten and breathed hypnosis forever, and I can get you to a really, really high level with this. It's a great location, a beautiful city with great restaurants, world-class opera, museums. It's probably the safest city of 3 million people on the planet, and great public transit. Come and study with me in September. We have 5 people confirmed already, and the room does not hold 1 million people, as you can imagine.
Yeah, so we haven't even really been talking about this much, and a bunch of people are emailing and asking, so I'm pretty sure it's going to fill up.
Don't forget, too, that the format is different. I'm rebuilding the course right for this purpose. We're starting right back at scratch, and this is going to be the architecture of hypnosis. We're going to show you how hypnosis corresponds to the architecture of a Gothic cathedral, and we will build the foundation, the pillars, the bays, the gallery, the lofted ceiling, the tower, and end with the spires and the stained glass windows on the final day, and you will leave with a skill set you will not believe.
Now, you're going to keep the same basic content intact, I'm sure, right? Where you're going to do Ericksonian and direct method of hypnosis?
Yes, we give everyone a full box of tools, Ericksonian and direct hypnosis, including a number of new inductions that I came up with. We just premiered one, as you'll recall, Chris, at the course I just did based on human givens theory, which I don't want to make it sound like I'm always promoting the human givens theory, but it is really, really amazing, and the model resonates with me as being accurate. I think Griffin and Tyrrell have done a phenomenal job, and I have nothing whatever to do with them. I've never met them, never talked to them, but buy the human givens material. They're great books, and I have come up with an induction which is based on a REM state. So it's called a Rem Induction, and it gets people zoned through the floor really, really fast. If you're a street hypnotist, you'll like this one.
So let's talk about that now, because I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the things that we did in the hypnosis training. As I said earlier, I was only able to show up for 1 of the 4 days of the training, but it happened to be...
Soon to be 5.
Yeah, and it happened to be the Saturday of the second weekend, where you demoed the Rem Induction, and I was the subject. So I really enjoyed it. I have been a subject for most of your trance inductions, I think. You have so many.
At one point or another,
yeah. And this one was phenomenal. So maybe we can describe a little bit about how the Rem induction works and why it induces trance.
Well, the human givens theory basically, there he goes again, basically states that hypnosis is hacking into the REM state, and we can gain access to the REM state much the way we gain access to a memory, insofar as we can access any one of the 4 tuple components of a memory: internal visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital, which is the internal dialogue we have or do not have, which is why it's digital, not analog. We can gain a memory, a complete memory, by using any one of these. So I can get a visual component and gradually flesh out the entire memory. Well, it's the same with a REM induction. I can replicate aspects of a REM state with rapid eye movement, which I suspect that's why EMDR works when it doesn't leave people in a hyper-aroused state, which it sometimes does. I expect it works because it is accessing a REM state, which is the hypnotic state. And so I have people's eyes moving in a very specific pattern, eyes open and eyes closed, with the head and neck locked still, which replicates the semi-paralysis that occurs when the pontine tegmentum stops the motor neurons from activating while the person is asleep so they don't thrash around. And by building in a couple of these components, we can then very, very quickly activate the startle reflex and drop someone through the floor into trance in about 15 seconds.
Now, keeping the neck still, that's very similar to a question we got a few podcast episodes ago about sleep paralysis, the idea being that you protect yourself by your brain doesn't allow your body to thrash around while sleeping, so you simulate that, and you simulate the REM by, in your case, I think you moved the tip of a pencil or pen around.
Right, fingertip, doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a key premise that I learned when studying hypnosis with you for the first time, that everything that assumes trance causes trance.
Yes, Clark Hall was the first one to say that. In his book, I think it was Hypnosis and Suggestibility. And it's a really interesting comment, interesting observation. Basically, if I need a so-called medium trance, whatever that is, although Elman claimed there was no medium trance, it was simply a very brief transitional state from hypnoidal to light trance to somnambulism, and then, of course, the Esdale state below. More about that later. But suppose I need a medium trance, whatever that is, to produce a cataleptic limb that is rigid and does not move, I can naturally enter the other side of the loop and produce a cataleptic limb, and by doing so, I automatically and instantly get a medium trance. So anything that assumes trance causes trance, and Ted James points this out really, really well. And it's a remarkable thing to keep in mind. If you build the components of a trance, you will get a trance.
Okay, now I have been spending the better part of the last few days just scouring YouTube and trying to find good demonstrative videos of this kind of technique. It just doesn't seem to me that very many people are using them.
Appalling stuff online. I mean, you know me, I zip my mouth up. I don't criticize people. If I don't talk about someone, that's an indication that I'm not especially impressed with them. And I've said on this program how much I think Igor Lechevsky does a great job. Jamie Smart does good trainings. I know Karen Webb has written a phenomenal language pattern Bible. I have great respect for Tad James and Bandler and Grinder. But there are so many people out there that are doing abysmally poor techniques.
Well, then in that case, I think that we should be putting together some really good quality demonstrations and throwing them up on YouTube. I think our listeners would probably enjoy it.
I will rise to the occasion, young man, and provide them for you.
Okay, so on that, perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which was the Dave Elman induction. We worked on this the Saturday in class, and I've done it many, many times in your class before. And so I think I've got most of the fine points down now after so many years. I'm always so intrigued at how perfect your demonstrations of this are. But that's not why I brought it up. Why I brought it up is, A, I haven't seen any really good online demos of this, so I think we ought to record one.
We better put it up there.
And B, you had made the comment, as you do every time you teach it, that it is the perfect induction because it has so much built into it. So I thought it would be good to talk about what is built into the Elman induction, and then maybe for those who don't know what it is, generally describe the induction.
Sure, maybe I'll describe it and then we'll deconstruct it. Sure. The Elman induction is the closest thing to a perfect induction I've ever seen, and any attempt to change it, modify it, improve it, always results in making it less effective. Always. Because once you get something that's perfect and try to fix it, you wind up making it imperfect. You can't make something more perfect. And the Elman induction has all kinds of wonderful built-in things. Basically, you have your subject, and this is a slam dunk, rapid induction. It's not an instant induction, but it's certainly not a horrible progressive relaxation induction. But the basis of the Elman induction, as Dave Elman taught it, was you ask the person, hypothetically, can you imagine making a fist so tight you couldn't possibly make it any tighter? And they say yes. And then you say, so can you imagine the converse, making your hand so relaxed that you couldn't possibly relax it anymore? And they say yes. And you say, that's the quality of relaxation I want you to get with this induction. In a moment, and those are the magic words of the Elman induction, you pre-frame everything you're going to do, and they have to follow your instructions. They can never get ahead of you. So it's built in following the instructions, very rigid and authoritarian in that regard. So you say, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to relax the tiny little muscles around your eyes so much that as long as you hold on to that relaxation, they just won't work. And then you can give them a good test like this. And you boing your eyebrows up and down with your eyes shut and say you can test them really hard like this. It feels kind of cool. And I want you to hold on to the relaxation and do that. So they do it. And if they open their eyes, you say, oh, you open your eyes every day. I want you to remain in that state, keeping your eyelids relaxed, and only attempt to open them when you know it's impossible to do so, which of course puts them in a double bind and the eyes don't open. And you get them to test the eyelids really hard by forcing the eyebrows up and down. And the more fervently they test here, the better the effect will be. And you say, that's great. Stop trying and let a huge wave of relaxation go from the top of your head down to the soles of your feet. That same relaxation that was around your eyelids. So they do. And their head will typically begin to tilt at this time. And you say, in a moment, magic words again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and look at my hand, which I will immediately pass in front of your eyes. When I do, I want you to close your eyes and double your physical relaxation. And again, we run into the people who try to improve this by saying, you will be 10,000 billion times more relaxed. Nonsense. Who can imagine that? Anybody can double things. And doubling and doubling, doubling will give you the compounding you need to create a great induction. So then you're going to fractionate them 6 times. You say, open your eyes. You pass your hand upward in front of their eyes. They look at your hand, which is very close to the eyes. You pass it down again, following the curvature of their face, and immediately their eyes close. So their eyes are only open for about 1 second. As their eyes drop to follow your hand down, their head tips forward, and you do this 6 times. The law of diminishing returns basically states that after 6 fractionations, you probably won't get much deeper relaxation or trance beginning. So you watch their head begin to tilt into a head tilt. They get very relaxed, and now you test it. In a moment, I'm going to pick up your right hand by the thumb just a couple of inches and let it drop on your leg. Don't help me at all. Let me do all the lifting. And your hand will just splat down like a wet dishcloth. You lift their hand, let go of it by the thumb. It drops on their leg like a wet dishcloth. Bingo, you've got what you need. And you say, this is physical relaxation. If they help you at all, you tell them that you have to do all the lifting and you do it with the other hand and to make them relax it completely. Now the hand splats down. Otherwise, you've got to keep fractionating them until you get the relaxation you want. At this time, you say, this is physical relaxation, but there's also mental relaxation. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to begin counting out loud backwards from 100 like this. 100, deeper relaxed. And you say it very deliberately. And you say, with each number, I want you to double your mental relaxation until soon there won't be any numbers left to relax. You will have relaxed them right out of your mind after just a few numbers. Okay, begin now. And they go 100, deeper relaxed. And then you say, that's it, double it, make it happen. Relax your mind. I can't do it for you. Push the numbers out of your mind, banish them. 99, deeper relaxed. And they suddenly stop. And you say the magic words, all gone? Or are the numbers gone? And they nod or say yes. If you say, are the numbers still there? You'll bring them back. So you say, all gone, or the numbers gone? They'll nod or say yes. And you'll say, excellent. And just continue to go deeper. Now you've got a somnambulistic trance, which is the working state of hypnosis, and you can move on accordingly. That is the Elman Induction.
Now, I've noticed sometimes you'll see people who have learned an Ericksonian paradigm, and they'll begin this induction and say something like, and I'd like for you to just start to notice that you can let your eyes relax.
Yeah, we saw that in the class on the weekend. We do the Ericksonian stuff, the permissive hypnosis the first weekend, and if we're not careful, people start bringing that in. Or worst, they're afraid it won't work if they go too fast and they begin doing one of those horrible progressive relaxation inductions that basically bores people into trance by spending 40 minutes on it. They say, and the little muscles around your eyes, and now you can feel the muscles in your face relaxing. No.
Yeah.
Elman Induction is a slam dunk in your face, drive them through the floor in about 4 minutes or less induction.
So in 4 minutes, you have somnambulism. And
yes, not somnambulism.
Somnambulism. I've heard people say that. Somnambulism.
Yes, I've heard one person say it.
And you end up in the working state of hypnosis, as you said many times before.
Right. And with a somnambulistic trance, the subject can open his eyes, look around, converse with you, and so on. You can do false awakenings and create visual hallucinations and all sorts of wonderful things. This is where you need the person to be. And that's why the Elman Induction will get you there if you do it the way I said and keep it moving. And I do have to credit Jerry Kine because he God bless him, he brought the Elman induction back to a large degree. I can't say he actually brought it back, but he did trumpet it and get a lot of people doing it again. I don't agree specifically with his Elman induction testing, which I think is flawed, but I think he's done a great job in popularizing a really, really important induction. So, Jerry, my hat goes off to you there. Now, what makes the induction so good?
That was my next question.
I thought it would be. Right from the beginning, it's, can you imagine making a fist so tight you couldn't possibly squeeze anymore? Yes. And can you imagine the converse, relaxing your hand so much you could not possibly relax it anymore? Yes. Now, if you leave these things out, you're leaving out an important part of a yes set where the person will agree with you uncritically. And if you preface it with, are you ready to start? Yes. Now you got 3 yeses. You got a yes set underway. And you can now go into your compliance set, which is unquestioned obedience, which you will segue and cascade into a trance. So then you say, that's the quality of relaxation I'm going to ask you to get. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, etc., etc. When they close their eyes and test them, they are now complying uncritically, and fractionating continues the compliance, and you immediately move them from compliance into a trance state. It's just beautifully designed in every single way.
Okay, so then that's the Elman induction. That's the fast way to
That's the primary Elman induction. I mean, there are more than one. He worked with the eyes a lot, pulling the eyelids shut. He did work with eye fixation at times. He is pretty well the gold standard of direct inductions in the last 50 years.
Right, as opposed to Erickson, who is the indirect master of the universe.
I think Erickson was probably the master of all of it.
Yeah. All right, so then let's compare the Elman induction, very direct, authoritative, fast, to the progressive relaxation, boring people into trance, because I know people are asking, what is progressive relaxation and why is it a waste of time?
A progressive relaxation takes 40 minutes to do, sometimes, to do what you can do in 4. It bores people into trance by going on and on and on, and you can feel the tiny muscles in your face beginning to relax. And if the person's hyper-analytical, they go, no, I can't. And you can feel the chair getting firm underneath, and you can feel your body sinking into it. No, I can't. And it causes all kinds of problems. It's the same methodology or the same mindset where people think that you have to get eye closure to have trance. We don't have eye closure. I mean, Braid didn't get it when he discovered the Braid method in the beginning of eye fixation. But if you want eye closure, you don't have to say to the person, your eyes are getting tired, your eyes are getting very heavy, your eyelids are getting heavy, you're getting sleepy. The person's thinking, wrong. You don't have to suggest it. Just say, close your eyes.
Everything that assumes trance causes trance.
Right.
All right, perfect. So that's really all I wanted to ask you about progressive relaxation.
Don't waste your time with it. It's right up there with scripts. It's the junk food of hypnosis, and progressive relaxation inductions should only be an absolute last resort, which means you should never use them.
Okay, perfect. Now, let's get back to a couple of things that happened in the class. Again, the Saturday that I was there was to me so entertaining and so educational. One thing, I got an email from John, and he had come in. I wasn't there that day. I think it was the second Sunday. And we were talking, or you were talking about, where is it here? It's in my notes.
Oh, present state versus target state.
Yeah, I mentioned it to you already. So present state versus target state. And John had said, look, he's a master student of Mike's. I'd come back, and it was worth coming back just to hear you talk about this again. So maybe for the benefit of the listeners out there, what is present state versus target state?
Well, I'm going to say the name. It was John Sternall, and he does some great, great work. He first met me when I was doing a lecture at the Royal York Hotel in Toronto to a group of financial planners. And he was in the audience, got into hypnosis, took my course, and he's just taken the ball and run with it and done some absolutely phenomenal work, working with a bodywork specialist, some deep physical healing with hypnosis, and he's pushing the limits every time I talk to him. So kudos to you, John, and thanks for your question. Present state versus target state. Therapy and life are great models for each other. In therapy, someone would come in who has a present state they do not like. They might be anxious, they might be depressed, whatever it is. And they have a target state, which is what they want, to be calm, to be happy. However, this is described usually VAK, visual auditory kinesthetic, at least to be specific. So in order to do good work, we have to take the person from their present state to their target state through the addition of resources. Now, life is another model for this. Life is a model for therapy, and therapy is a model for life. In life, you have your present state, which is where you live, where you work, who you hang out with, how much money you have, your current level of health, etc., etc. And if you plan wisely, you will also have a target state, although you probably have one unconsciously at least, which is where you want to live, what you want to do, what you want your time to be spent doing, who you want to hang out with, who you want to be married to, etc., etc. In reality, we do not move someone through resources from their present state to their target state. What we do is continuously transform the present state until it becomes the target state. Now, the problem is, built into our language and the zeitgeist is this concept. I think it is a throwback to psychoanalysis, which I think has been seriously lacking in any real usefulness compared to the modern therapies. And psychoanalysis basically got everybody thinking that the past was crucial for everything. We have to know why something happened before we can fix it. Well, this is nonsensical. I've worked with hundreds of phobias and depressed people and anxieties and ADD and ADHD and all kinds of things. And I have not got a clue most of the time why they have the problem. But if I can help the person overcome it, get better, feel better, look better, live better, and it never comes back, who cares why it happened? You don't have to explore the past because you can do it infinitely. And as Human Givens theory points out, with Joe Griffin and I can't remember Mr. Tyrrell's name. Anyway, they point out really well that talking about the past and revivifying the past reaccesses these negative states. It doesn't get rid of them. So when we ask why questions, all we do is amplify the present state. We are doing nothing whatever to move towards the target state. If you habitually ask questions like, why am I so stupid? Your reticular activating system will come up with reasons for you. Well, let me see. Your parents are both stupid. There's a genetic basis. You don't eat right or exercise. You're not getting glucose and oxygen to your brain. Your friends are all idiots. And you go, that's right. There's a sociological aspect too. I am stupid. Why not ask yourself the question I ask myself every day? How can I get smarter? Put it back in process. Move towards the target state. How can I get smarter today and have an absolute blast doing it?
If you ask why questions, all you do is get justification as to why it's okay for this to be the case. Right?
That's absolutely true, Chris.
Why did you spill your milk, sweetheart? Well, because whatever. You always get a silly reason instead of what are we going to do about it?
Right, and it keeps people stuck. So get away from the why questions. Ask how questions to move to the target state. What will you see, hear, and feel when you have that target state? And then what's the next thing you have to do? One of the best questions in therapy is, what's next? Okay, so we get all this information. What is next for you, for your family, for me, whatever? What's next? That shows the direction. It illuminates it. Make sure you're putting things in process. The greatest question of all is the magic question. What do you want? Find out what you want. Identify the target state. Put it into VAK, visual auditory kinesthetic. Find out what the next step is and begin.
Okay. I love that explanation. And I wanted to move to the next topic from the class, which was Actually, I can't remember the name of the induction you did. It was using your fingers to help close Andrea's eyes.
Oh, that's another Elman one.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So we don't have time to go through the whole description of that in this podcast. Maybe the next one we can do it. But with Andrea in the class, I hope she's okay with we're going to use her first name only. You did an induction with her, took her into somnambulism, and from that point, you had her imagine that she was looking at a photograph of her family, which she took. She put it into her heart area.
Right. I think I initially asked her about if she liked small animals, and she didn't respond.
Right. So I noticed that, and then you switched to, well, what about small pictures of your family, which she did nod to. She then accepted the suggestion that she was looking at one, so-called positive hallucination, which also means negative hallucination because she couldn't see what was presumably behind that photograph, right? And then you had her switch chairs, and you gave her the suggestion that she was going to come back to now after about 30 seconds of sitting in a different chair and be surprised and curious as to how she got there.
And did you see the flush of integration when she came out of trance? She was just shocked how she teleported to another chair.
It was bizarre. The look on her face. I mean, I've seen this kind of thing before, mostly in your stage hypnosis shows. But in this environment, I think it had a therapeutic effect for her to realize that this had happened.
And I think based on that, and some of the other work I did with one of the other students, Lisa, the following day, demoing to the class some of these things, setting up anchors and collapsing them and changing people's states and getting rid of negative emotions in front of their eyes, I think that's a lot more powerful than me just teaching them how to do it. I tend to work with a lot more demonstration these days, as we've discussed, where they can see real things shifting in front of their eyes.
Yeah, and so I know that we have a lot of past students, future students, and just general interested people in hypnosis, and they can learn how to do something like the Elman Induction. I mean, you're going to show them on a video. We're going to record it. How do you know, or how will a hypnotist, a young hypnotist learning how to do this stuff, how will they know that they truly have somnambulism so that the subject will respond favorably to suggestions like, okay, we're going to move you into another chair and you're not going to remember moving?
Right. Well, there are key indicators of somnambulism, and one of the classics is the lack of facial expression. The face becomes flaccid, completely limp. The eyes can be opened. Often the blink reflex totally disappears without the eyes becoming, dry or painful or anything of that nature. And the person can have their eyes open, look around and so on with no real problem. You will not disrupt the state. But sometimes you're not going to be able to tell if they're sitting there with their eyes shut. One of my favorite tests for somnambulism is I just put my thumb and middle finger, warning them first, just on the occiput, the back of their head where it joins the neck, and just wobble the head on my fingers. And if the person is in a somnambulistic trance, it feels like their head is on oiled ball bearings. It just floats around effortlessly. And that's a pretty good indicator that you got it.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's a really helpful answer. And we're going to have to talk more about this stuff because there's just so much stuff that happened in the last course that was interesting. I think we'll have to save some for podcast 14. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
All right. So on that note, I think we're probably wrapping up. I'll get you to do the closing metaphor. But before we do, we'll just remind you, head on over to the website and check for announcements regarding the upcoming training, which will be in late September here in Toronto for 5 days.
Aiming at September 24.
And it's going to be phenomenal. Mike's redesigning the course. You even give it a new name?
Yep, the Architecture of Hypnosis. And we're in the beautiful campus of St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto, downtown Toronto. An absolutely stunning old room with long windows and oil paintings on the walls that look metaphorical. And the place just reeks of academia, and you come on out, you'll have an absolute blast studying with me. We have so many students come back. Some of them have come back numerous times, and the reason why is I put my reputation behind the quality of the training. We go out of our way to provide for you the best hypnosis training on the planet. I don't care where you've studied. There's some great teachers out there, but I can get you to the next level. And that's what we're planning to do. Now, here's the other value-added thing we do. The people who come back and do my master hypnotist course, and we have 2 signed up already for September from the last course. Once you do the master course, we permit you to come back again and review the course for free forever. So you meet the same people. You can come back year after year. It won't cost you anything to come back. We'll even give you free coffee. And all you have to do is be a resource person and help the others. And our little community of skilled and phenomenal hypnotists continues to grow.
It is fantastic, and I really love how much fun everyone has in the class. It's not this super serious, everybody has to, keep to themselves and just learn and read all the theory, and we have fun doing hypnosis.
We have a blast, and we push you in the deep end from day one, and nobody has ever failed the course because the only one who can fail it is me. It is my job to get the information into your brain, and I do it the way one of my mentors, Derek Baumer, taught, which is you entertain consciously and you teach unconsciously, and you'll come out with a phenomenal set of skills. I'm going to completely rebuild and rewrite my course with inductions you've never seen, ways of doing therapy you can't imagine. We'll look at lucid dreaming, pain management, tons of Ericksonian stuff, conversational stuff, street stuff. You honestly get it all. And whether you're planning on using hypnosis on stage or in a therapeutic practice, or you are a therapist and you want to tune up your skills, or you're a psychologist or a medical doctor, a dentist, a guy who cleans swimming pools for a living, you deliver newspapers or flyers, whatever you are, come and study with me and you will have an absolute blast, and you will get a phenomenal set of skills you can use out there in the real world.
We just, in fact, for those of you thinking, I I need to be involved in the hypnotic profession if I'm going to be taking training like this. Absolutely not true. We just had an email from Ryan, one of the students that was at the class, and he described how he's already been using hypnosis on his daughter's anxieties very effectively, and he's an IT guy. He's an information technology guy, so he's a computer geek like I am.
It's a totally new world to him.
Yeah, and that's the kind of range we have from therapists right through to IT
sound
people.
Engineers, medical doctors, and just everything you can imagine.
This stuff is just fun to learn. So on that note, you have a closing metaphor for us.
I do, Chris, and I've got a rather interesting one. A couple of years ago, being the world's foremost AC/DC fan, and I can prove it, so anyway, I won't go into it, but being the world's foremost AC/DC fan, the greatest hard rock and roll band in the world, blues rock based at any rate, greatest live band in the world. I've been an Angus Young fan forever, and here you got a guy who's 5'2" tall, wears a schoolboy uniform still, even though he's in his late 50s now. And this little guy with his guitar, his Gibson SG, can hold 70,000 people in the palm of his hand. Some of them could be his grandchildren. Phenomenal. So I love the band. And I get email updates through Google, anything about AC/DC. Well, I got one from Gibson Guitars saying they were planning on releasing an Angus Young Gibson SG. There would be only 50 of them released to the entire planet. 50. They were all going to be handmade in the Gibson Pro Shop and Custom Shop, hand-aged, so they would look like they'd been on the road with AC/DC for 40 years. They would be the exact specifications of Angus's guitar, including the lightning bolts on the neck, the disconnected tone control, because his is disconnected and does absolutely nothing, weathering on the pickups, and each one would be played by him and hand signed by him with a leather-bound documentation from Gibson and hand numbered. And they were selling for $9,999 each, I think, and 99 cents. So about a penny under 10 grand US. And I saw this, and I was a little kid in the candy store. It's like, oh man, if only, if only, if only. And I knew I couldn't get it. I mean, it was just ridiculous. 50 to the planet. My wife said to me the next day, you really want that guitar, don't you? And I said, yeah. And she said, is that the holy grail to you? Is that the Rosebud, the ultimate thing you would own forever? And I said, absolutely. She said, I think you should go ahead and buy it. And I was like, yes! So I phoned the Yorkville Sound in Toronto, tried to track one down. Couldn't find one. Phoned Gibson Guitars. 2 of them had come into Canada. Only 2 for the whole country. They'd gone to Japan, all over the world. One was in Vancouver. One was in Edmonton. I spoke to both shops. I became second in line for both of them. The one in Edmonton sold. I was waiting to hear from Vancouver. The guy bought it, so I couldn't get one. And I started phoning all over the U.S. I phoned Las Vegas. I phoned guitar stores everywhere. Not a trace of them. And I gave up. And 2 nights later, I was sending an email to a friend of mine, Konstantin Zaksanis, who's a neuropsychologist, a professor at University of Toronto Scarborough College. And in the email, he'd asked if he could use some of my notes for his teaching. And I said, sure. And I said, I'm just listening to AC/DC. And he said, oh, I'm getting an Angus Young SG. And I said, shut up, back and forth by email. And he said, no, I am. He said, one of the 50. And I said, I've been trying to get one. And he said, do you want one? And I said, yeah. And he said, hang up. Oh, he said, I'll talk to you on the phone. So he phoned me. He said, you sure you want to get one? I said, yeah. He said, hang up. I'll call you right back. And he phoned Guitar Center in Beverly Hills and managed to get one for me 2 days after I'd given up. And I sent them, I sent a money order to the electronic funds transfer and waited and waited and waited. And a few days later, Federal Express brought me my Angus Young guitar, 1 out of 50 for the entire planet. So when I had given up, it still showed up at my door.
That's awesome.
Of course, I did have to pay for it.
All right. So with that concludes session number 13 of Brain Software with Mike Mandel. We've done 13 already. This is fantastic. I'm going to keep going. So I'd love to invite
your questions.
Invite you all to send in your questions. We love getting them. And the email address to use is questions@mikemandelhypnosis.com. That way both of us get the questions. And of course, head on over to iTunes. The more ratings that you leave, honest ratings only, please. Ratings help us get up in the rankings and more people get exposed to this podcast. So we'd love for you to do that. And of course, sign up for our email list over at mikemandelhypnosis.com, because that's where we're going to tell you about all the new cool stuff that we're doing, like the training coming up in September.
And also the new program, the Good Night Sleep program, which is for dealing with insomnia, is about to come out as soon as we get get the final touches put on it.
Yep, and as soon as we get some of these YouTube videos up of demoing Elman inductions, things like that, we'll send you guys out messages and webinars. We're going to do some webinars.
Yes, we are.
So that's it for session 13.
See, what we've tried to do with this is we've come up with a song that absolutely nails what it would be like to be at Area 51 and watching the fascists dismantle an alien spacecraft with industrial lasers and reverse engineer it for all the parts and that. And that's what this song is about, and I think I've captured the atmosphere exactly.